All right, let's talk about something that trips a lot of people up. OCD versus OCPD. They sound almost identical, right? But underneath the surface, they are worlds apart. And honestly, understanding the real difference isn't just trivia, it's the absolute key to figuring out how to deal with them. So, let's dive in. You ever find yourself stuck in a loop? You know that feeling, that nagging thought in your head asking, why do I need everything to be absolutely perfect? Or maybe it's, why am I checking that I locked the door for the 10th time, even though I know I did it? Well, these are the exact kinds of questions that get us right to the heart of what we're talking about today. Okay, first up, let's break down OCD. And the number one thing you need to know is that it's an anxiety disorder. Think of it as a relentless cycle, a feedback loop that feels almost impossible to get out of. So what is this loop really? Well, it all kicks off with obsessions. These aren't just little worries. They're unwanted, intrusive thoughts that just barge into your mind and crank your anxiety up to 11. And to get some relief from that feeling, you perform a compulsion, a repetitive action or a ritual. But here's the real kicker. With OCD, you often know that these thoughts are irrational. You know it doesn't make sense, but you feel completely powerless to stop the cycle. Let's make this real. A fear of harm isn't just double-checking something. It's being unable to leave your home until you've checked the stove 5, 10, maybe 20 times, with this knot of pure dread in your stomach. A fear of contamination? That can lead to washing your hands so compulsively that your skin is literally raw and bleeding. The ritual might give you a brief moment of relief, but that obsession, oh, it always comes roaring back. Now let's switch gears completely and talk about OCPD, Obsessive-Compulsive Personality Disorder. That one word, personality, is the total game changer here. This isn't an anxiety disorder, it's a personality disorder, and that makes all the difference. OCPD is all about a deep, fundamental preoccupation with perfectionism, rules, and control. But here's the big twist. For someone with OCPD, their rigid way of doing things doesn't feel irrational at all. In fact, it feels right. It feels like the most efficient and correct way to do things, even if it's straining relationships or causing them to miss deadlines. It's not a bug, it's a core feature of their personal operating system. So how does this actually play out? Well, instead of a ritual to soothe a specific fear, you might see someone working on a report until it's flawless, even if that means it's 2 weeks late and totally useless. Or you might know someone with a daily routine so incredibly strict that any tiny disruption doesn't cause anxiety, it causes this intense irritation. The driving force here isn't fear. It's a deep-seated belief that this is simply the correct way for things to be done. All right, here we go. This is the main event. We've looked at them on their own, but now let's put them right next to each other to make the differences totally crystal clear. This is where it all clicks. This table just lays it all out, doesn't it? For OCD, the engine is anxiety and fear. The person knows their thoughts are a problem, and it's genuinely distressing. It feels like an alien invader in your own mind. Now, flip over to OCPD. The engine here is perfectionism and a need for rules. The person doesn't see a problem, they feel righteous, like their way is the right way. It doesn't feel like an invasion, it just feels like them. And that's the core distinction. One feels like a painful intrusion you're fighting, while the other feels like an authentic part of who you are. So, what's the point of knowing all this? Well, it's simple. Different problems demand different solutions. Knowing what you're actually dealing with is the first step to taking effective action. So now, let's open up the toolkit. For OCD, the name of the game is breaking that obsession-compulsion cycle. A really powerful way to start is with what you could call a mini ERP. It's all about facing the fear without doing the ritual. So if you normally check a lock 5 times, you make yourself check it just once. And then, this is the toughest part, you have to sit with that anxiety. You're teaching your brain that you can handle it. Another great technique is just setting a time limit. I'm only giving this cleaning ritual 10 minutes. It's about taking back control. With OCPD, the focus is totally different. It's about building mental flexibility, like it's a muscle. You can start with small challenges. Intentionally change one tiny part of your daily plan, just to practice adapting. And a really powerful tool is the good enough rule. Instead of shooting for a flawless 100%, aim for 80% and tell yourself it doesn't have to be perfect to be okay. It's all about learning to loosen that iron grip of control. And honestly, this is what it all comes down to. This is the whole point. Understanding if you're dealing with an anxiety-driven loop or a personality-driven rigidity, that's the key that unlocks the right solutions. It lets you shift your focus away from blaming yourself and onto strategy. It's not about fixing a flaw in you. It's about changing the system you're working in. So that brings me to my final question for you. When you think about it,
a compulsive ritual or a rigid rule. They're both just systems, right? So take a second and think about it. What is one small system in your life that you could challenge or maybe just tweak a little starting today? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.